Ringside Secrets, 66 Tactics to Outthink and Outfight Your Opponent. Acknowledgement. The material in this book first stemmed from lessons taught to me by my father, who passed down not only his experience but also those shared with him by Chuck Bodak and other coaches and fighters throughout the 20th century. I initially compiled this material for a day-long seminar where we explored key concepts and focused on how to effectively execute and drill them. I began writing this book 2 years later, gradually chipping away at it. But it wasn't until my wife, Lissa, came on board to help with editing and proofreading that the project truly began to take shape and come to life. I want to thank her for her tremendous contribution, my father for passing on his decades of boxing knowledge, and the many fighters I've worked with, each of whom has taught me as much as I've taught them. Introduction. Prepare to embark on a thrilling voyage into the captivating realm of boxing, where the keys to victory are not just rooted in raw power, but also in the artful mastery of strategy and tactics. In this expansive exploration, we will unearth a treasure trove of battle-tested strategies and time-honored tactics that have illuminated the path to glory for fighters throughout history. These invaluable insights I'm about to share have been painstakingly collected over the years through my extensive coaching experience. My journey as a coach began in the tumultuous world of boxing in 2010, and before that, as a boxer myself. Since then, I've had the privilege of witnessing how strategy, when wielded with precision, can turn the tide of a fight in an instant. But there's more to my personal boxing journey than meets the eye. I've walked in the footsteps of legendary fighters and coaches who have shaped the sport's history. My own experience in the ring, both in the United States and Mexico, have allowed me to taste the adrenaline, the sweat, and the sweet highs that come from employing the very strategies I'm about to unveil to you. I am a second-generation boxing coach. My father, Donald "Doc" Kepner, was a legendary boxing coach whose influence stretched across many decades. He was more than just a coach. He was a mentor and a student of the craft. Doc had the privilege of being mentored by none other than the great Chuck Bodak, the maestro who worked with over 50 world champions and was the Olympic coach for the greatest, Muhammad Ali. Ali didn't just dazzle with his footwork and lightning-fast punches, but also utilized various strategies to outmaneuver his formidable adversaries. His strategic brilliance allowed him to thrive even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Lastly, Doc Kepner's journey in the sport was further enriched by his training and sparring sessions with Tony Zale, a two-time middleweight world champion. Tony Zale's historic fights with Rocky Graziano echoes through the annals of boxing history as one of the greatest trilogies to ever grace the sport. The invaluable knowledge Bodak passed on to my father, who in turn shared it with me, forms the very foundation of the strategies and tactics we will explore. In this book, we will delve deeper into why strategy is not just important, but the very heart of boxing. Consider the greats in more recent history. Think of the brilliance of Floyd Mayweather Jr., the adjustments of Andre Ward, and the artful counters of Juan Manuel Marquez. These titans used not only their raw power, but their strategic prowess, leading to Hall of Fame careers for all of them. As we navigate this comprehensive guide, remember that strategy is not a mere add-on. It is the backbone of success in boxing. We will dissect tactics that have shaped legends and explore strategies that have defied the odds. However, always keep in mind that a tool is only as mighty as the warrior who wields it. Without a solid foundation and fundamental skills as a boxer, even the most brilliant strategy can falter. How this book is organized. This book is formulated in a way to make it digestible as well as easy to reference and read time and time again. Make sure you mark this book up by underlining, highlighting, and adding your own notes if you are serious about retaining and implementing the ideas and tools that are inside. If you're listening to this audiobook, keep notes on your own. Each chapter of this book is packed with concepts, analogies, and practical tools that are essential for every boxer of every size and style to understand and be aware of. Therefore, do not skip over a single chapter, even one that you feel does not apply to you. For instance, the first chapter discusses how to beat a short fighter. Tall, medium, and short fighters alike need to know the information herein. Within the chapter, and every chapter, there are extremely detailed techniques. Perhaps the chapter you least expect will be the one that unlocks the floodgates to massive gains for you. The first 7 chapters of this book will cover how to fight 7 archetypal fighters. Next, we will dive deep into a treasure trove of boxing tools in a chapter called Tactics Toolbox. Finally, in the last chapter, we will go over 6 3-round strategies you can use as a template to tie together everything you have learned from the previous chapters into a comprehensive path to massive victory. At the end of each chapter, I have added a blank page for you to add your own notes. Keep this book in your gym bag for quick reference to evaluate how each strategy works for you. It is especially important to keep track of what you work on. Look back at your work and review it after a year so you do not lose the tactical ground you have gained once you have finished reading this book. So fasten your seatbelts and get ready to embark on the most thrilling journey of your life, the journey of boxing strategic mastery. Chapter 1, Fighting a Shorter Boxer. Being only about 5'8" myself, it took me a while to start giving taller guys tips that would help them beat my short comrades. I hated having to deal with a well-schooled taller fighter and all the tactics they would pull out. So much that I think I blocked them from memory for a while. But as I started coaching, I started helping my tall guys do everything that would give me, and almost any short fighter, a tough time. In some ways, boxing as a longer and taller person is easy. It is like sitting up on a hill. As the short guy tries to come across the field and get to the base of the hill, you can load up your weapons. When they get in firing range, you can start peppering them with your machine gun, the jab. Then, if they get to the base of your hill, you can really start dropping heavy artillery on them. Only if they do get past all of that is when you must lock in and start truly fighting. I have coached many tall guys that simply moved, and if you got within their range, they would unleash speed and power just enough to freeze you up, get back on their bicycle, and ride around the ring. When done right, a tall person can make a fight more like a workout session on the heavy bag, or a jog down the street than a blood and guts war. Like I mentioned earlier, don't run down from your hilltop position and try to fight the shorter guy where they are. That is going to make your night harder in most situations. But even the best boxers can get too excited and make this mistake. Even though most people have heard of this concept, they still tend to forget or struggle with it. When I work with individuals, I often notice that they tend to crowd their punches or don't know how to fully extend them. This is why we are covering this seemingly basic tactic. However, by understanding this, you are equipped with valuable knowledge, and knowledge is potential power. Let's dive into why this is essential. Why keep them at arm's length? Decrease danger. Picture this. You need to keep a snake away without getting bitten. What do? You use a long stick, right? In boxing, the same principle applies. The longer your stick, like your jab, the less likely your opponent can strike you. This concept cannot be emphasized enough. One of my first Golden Glove champions had an excellent practice. If someone entered his range, he was a taller fighter, he would unleash a flurry of straight shots to keep them at distance. If your opponent cannot get past that barrage, the fight is in your favor. Increase power. Objects in motion build up momentum, and the more space you have to build up momentum in your punch, the more powerful it becomes. Think about 2 of the hardest punchers in boxing history, Ray Robinson and Tommy Hearns. They did not land short punches. They connected right at the end of their punches with so much force that it seemed like a physical law. Your lights were going out. This type of power comes from that distance, as well as relaxation. Think of it as throwing the punch, not pushing it. A push doesn't generate power over distance, but a throw, like tossing a ball, does, big time. Makes your fight easier. Your role as a fighter is not to make your life harder than necessary when you're in the ring. Make it hard in the gym, during preparation, as you get ready for all the tough situations you will face, including the possibility of your opponent dragging you into deep waters. If done correctly, many opponents will struggle to overcome a simple and perfectly managed range. How can we train this? It all starts where it should always start, in shadow boxing. Learn to extend your arm all the way, not so much that it hurts your elbow, but far enough to reach your maximum. Your stance and foundation are crucial for this. The more you square up, the more you lose range on your jab. Instead, think of yourself as an action hero standing behind cover, exposing only a sliver of your body to hit your target. Simply become tough to hit by siding up. After you've sharpened your skills to keep someone at arm's length with your punches, practice taking very small steps back with your jab, adding a slight circular turn to avoid getting trapped against the ropes. Also, mix in tiny forward steps if your opponent retreats, or maintain the ideal range that you measure with your measuring stick, the jab. Practice throwing your jab with your body a few inches too far from a bag. Then take a slight inch forward step to determine the tip of your reach. When you spar or fight, adopt the mindset of a longer fighter. Your jab becomes like a cobra striking at the face, keeping them at bay and discouraging their attacks. You will leave them unsure of whether one of your punches may extend a couple inches further to snap their head back or hide a perfectly placed right hand. The majority of this section has been focused on the jab, but now let's talk about your rear straight, also called the two or quote cross. To maximize the range on your rear straight punch, focus on two things. First, pulling your lead shoulder back as you rotate on the punch, so your shoulders end up in the opposite stance, like your southpaw if you're orthodox, or orthodox if you're southpaw with the torso. Number two, make sure your rear foot is not left behind. If your back foot is too far behind and not, quote, under you, you will be hindering the ability of your hips to rotate off the pivot, therefore minimizing the range and force generation. The most crucial thing to watch out for is leaning in as a way to land the punch. If you develop a habit of leaning in without using it as a conscious tactical maneuver, you are making your opponent's job easier than you would like for it to be. Stay sharp and maintain your distance, and you'll be the one who has control in the squared circle. Get on their level to maximize reach. Okay, here is where we might run into some belief busting and break down some barriers. Tall fighters are often told to fight, quote, tall, which means a lot of things, but let me tell you what it should mean for 95 out of 100 of the taller boxers reading this book. It should not mean standing up straight or extremely high. Now, am I saying standing tall will never work? No, it can work. But as an automatic habit of a tall boxer, it can also be trouble. We are going to dive into the far less intuitive solutions that, when combined with proper range management, is your key to success. Let me give you an example of a classic light heavyweight champion, one of the best in that division, who did this extremely well. Bob Foster. He was very lean and long and brought himself down to his opponent's height with murderous results. There are 3 reasons why you want to learn and master this strategy, especially to go up the ranks. Number 1, to increase range. If I tell you to pick up a playing card off the floor, what do? Do you bend your knees a little and hinge at the waist as you would reach down your arm to get it? Or do you keep your legs and waist straight while trying to reach down with your arm and say, "Coach, I can't do it"? Of course, you do the former. And you should do the same thing with a shorter foe. Just the same as bending your legs and waist bring you closer to the card on the floor, dropping your stance a few inches will bring your punches closer to your opponent's skull. This adjustment alone makes getting on, quote, their level a priceless move that can add an additional 1 to 3 inches to all of your punches. Number 2, increases power. The lower your leverage, the more power you have. We just worked on maximizing the momentum and acceleration of your punches. Now, we're going to put even more payload on it. The leverage you create from being a little lower, where your body is more behind the punch, versus having that weight more widely distributed, can bring your power up another weight class or 2. Number 3, keeps you safer. Imagine you're in the middle of a war zone. The enemy gunfire is blasting all around you as you hide behind a wall. At that moment, would it be a good idea to go Rambo style, throwing down your rifle and charging the enemy? Or might it be better to stay behind the wall and try to get enough shots off, keeping the enemy at bay until you come up with a better solution? Well, champ, the same thing applies here. Your wall is your shoulders and arms. So the more you can keep everything vulnerable behind that, you are going to be good. Let me tell you how a Joe Frazier style fighter beats a Muhammad Ali style fighter. Ali is high, Frazier is low. Since the tall guy has to punch down, he automatically opens up to having his head taken off by a ferocious puncher like Frazier. Ali beat Frazier 2 out of 3 times, but the price it took on Ali's body is a price I don't want you to have to pay. But if you stay at their height when you throw headshots, your head is protected by your shoulders. Now you've added a couple inches to your range, increasing your power and become safer in the process. You just might be on the fast track to a W. Experiment with the strategy on the bag to get the idea. Stand tall and extend your jab to where a shorter opponent would be. Then bend down so now you are eye to eye. See? What a difference. Test this out in sparring and see how it can make your shorter partner shut down. The one thing to remember is to practice this a bit before actually using it, as the new stance and increased effort on the legs can be the only drawbacks. Make a fence. Right now, you are planting a garden, and that garden is you becoming the best boxer you can be. Maybe it's becoming the best guy or gal in your town, state, region, country, or even the entire world. Maybe even the GOAT. But let's say you have all these pesky little short critters trying to eat at your garden. What is one thing you need to do? Build a fence. So let's work on building that fence and making it barbed wire while we're at it. You'd be shocked at how much it sucks when someone does this to you. Short guy problems. And thrilled when you perfect this in your next sparring session. The more you move your hands out in front of your body, within reason, the harder it is for your opponent to get to you, and the easier it is for you to hit them. It's the best of both worlds. Don't you love how that works? If you can get your fist 30% closer to your opponent before you ever throw a punch without getting your head or body any closer, it should be about 30% easier to hit them, right? Yes. You'd be amazed at how so many fighters that seem fast aren't actually any faster than you. They're just more relaxed, and in some cases, they're simply throwing their punches from a more opportune position. Not only does this increase the speed of your punch by minimizing the distance it has to travel, it also speeds up your combos. You'll learn how to almost blend your combos together in a raging river of blows that are very hard to defend against and get past every opening. On the defensive side, your punches and arms alone stop incoming shots as long as you maintain a longer range. Just be ready to use your feet if they find a way to get past. What this does, and I love this the best, is it lies to your opponent. It gets them hitting your arms and makes them feel like they are connecting. If they place something accurately, they could hit a scoring or vital area. They would be right if your hands were closer in a more traditional stance. So if the hand wasn't there, it would have been a face And if the arm was high, then they would have gotten your liver. But little do they know, after a while of you dominating them in this manner, you can sometimes just drop your hands in the middle of the combo, only do this against lesser people, and they would be getting some of their own shadowboxing training in the middle of their sparring session with you. You may think you can't create power from throwing punches with your arms away from your body. Well, let me give you the code. First, the better you are at simply snapping your shoulder and fist with a punch, the better you'll be at hitting them with enough power to make them have to think twice. Your punch will be so dang fast and hard to defend that they'll get hit more and therefore they lose. When you combine that with being an accurate puncher, aiming at the tip of the jaw, etc., executing excellent timing and being able to shoot in between or set up punches, then you might surprise yourself with what these punches can do from this extended position. Now keep in mind, the further out you are from someone, the more your arms and hands can reach out and control them. Think of Larry Holmes in his prime. The closer you get, the more you need to bring those hands and elbows back to you. In using the lead foot like a barricade. As you see, the more you can fortify yourself and make it difficult for your opponent to get close to you, the better off you are when you are the taller and longer fighter. This strategy I am about to give you breaks some rules in order to break your opponent. It uses the foot stop, which can give opposite stance fighters trouble, morphing it into a tool you can pull out of your back pocket against any stance fighter. In some cases, this utterly destroys your shorter opponent's chances to lay a single hand on you the entire night. With this move, the longer fighter uses their lead leg as a barricade to control the opponent and keep them exactly where they want them. You accomplish this by putting your weight more on your back leg, extending your lead leg out as far as it will go. Here is the big rule breaker. Positioning your feet like you're standing on a tightrope. I can hear it now. Quote, never stand on a tightrope. You can't move. You'll get knocked out, etc., etc., etc. But the proof is in the doing. If you are longer than your foe, they will not be able to hit you easily, and with this position, you will not even have to worry about moving away from them. You can just set up a tent right in the middle of the ring and relax. Now, before you make this your go-to or default stance, remember, any good fighter and coach relationship is all about building the foundation. As far as stance is concerned, a foundation is good balance, feet slightly offline, etc., etc. But what I'm talking about here is breaking the rules on purpose for a specific reason, assuming you have a reasonable mastery of basic stance to fall back on. You will be amazed at how well this can work. As your opponent tries to reach further to get you or to get your head or torso, they will be falling into your viper's den of vicious uppercuts and all types of nasty sharp shots. I remember the first time a longer fighter pulled this technique on one of my guys. Once he started doing it, my guy wasn't able to touch him anymore for the rest of the session. He wasn't able to get to him. The next time we sparred, I gave him the code to break it. I will save that code for Volume 2 of Strategies and Tactics. Pro tip. Remember, in general, the further you can get your head and body away from your opponent when you do not want to throw, the more this move can put you in a whole other country when done right. In and out style. This one is basic, yet beautiful. And I would be remiss if I left it out. This type of style is part of the foundation of the European, Soviet, and Cuban styles that have dominated Olympic boxing for years. The only reason, from a coach perspective, it is a tool and not a default is because it can be limited when it's brought into a pro setting, if not combined with other things. But don't let that encourage you to neglect it. If you are a longer fighter or even an average height fighter, it can be phenomenally effective. This style is simple. Bounce in and out with punches while staying light on your feet with a steady rhythm. You are basically pecking or picking at your opponent, scoring and racking up points. This can be used to set up a nice knockdown with a little setting of the feet. What this does is bring you back to boxing roots, and that root is from fencing. It gets you in the mindset of sword fighting and not accepting one punch of your shorter opponent to even touch your gloves. Once you tag them with a shot, you are back and out of range. If they charge you, just get on your bicycle until they settle down again and are ready for you to start tagging them again. One of the wonderful things about working on this tactic is it makes for clear wins as an amateur. No matter how old or unfocused the judge is, if your punches land and your opponent hits air because you are out of their range, you will achieve a straightforward win. Oftentimes in amateurs who have more of a pro style, scoring systems are different. Judges have a tough time reading nuances, like the nuances of a James Toney or Georgie Benton with their defensive styles. They see punches hitting hands and elbows and mistakenly think those punches are hitting scoring areas. You do not want to rely on judges being world class to give you the win. And if you do, well, good luck. Practice the in and out style while shadowboxing and on the bag. Make sure to find your rhythm by playing with different timings of your bounce. Then try to change up your timing when you launch an attack off the balance. One unique way to practice is on the speed bag and double M bags while bouncing in and out of the range of the bag. The benefit of utilizing one of these bags is that they force you to find the timing of the bag versus an arbitrary timing you might fall into when you shadowbox or just hit a heavy bag. Double your distance and nullify retaliations. In boxing, you want to learn how to take small and calculated steps. Mastering the game of moving just big enough to avoid a punch or make your opponent reset is part of the sweet art of boxing. With this move, we are going to make sure your smaller opponent does not exploit what is normally a fine fundamental. Boxing is all about patterns. If you attack and then step out the same distance every time, you are giving the shorter person an opportunity and time to time your attack and step in with 2 steps for your 1 step. That is why it is especially important to learn to start just out of range, about 6 inches, step into attack, and then exit out a whole 18 to 24 inches when going against a smaller foe. A shorter boxer can overcome 6 inches, but 18 to 24 inches is a different story. If they do try to overcome it, that gives you the opportunity to run them into a sweet counterpunch. Remember, it is good to step out of range by a small amount because you need to be able to counter an opponent. Big steps make that difficult to do, but if you have the length in a match and that length advantage, you can make it exceedingly difficult for a shorter boxer to retaliate. Do your work, then immediately go out so you end up on the other side of town. Now they will have to take the bus to get back to you, and they may never catch up in time. It is all about stacking the deck against your opponent, and this is another excellent way to do that. In order to practice this, put some tape on the floor. Painter's tape, so you can remove it easily, it doesn't leave residue, and make 2, quote, punch marks, a 6-inch mark and an 18-inch mark. Start at the 6-inch mark, step in with a jab to the punch mark, and then step back out to the 18-inch mark. Always practice good form by stepping off to the side after you hit the 18-inch mark so you stay off their crosshairs and minimize the chance of them hitting you with a lucky leaping shot. Extend your arms as you step out. Here is an excellent move you can mix with the in and out style, a large step out or just movement in general. Take away your body but leave an arm. This is a great disruptive tactic because now your opponent has a pole in their face to contend with. At the very least, you can use that to help keep space, control their head or body, and at the very most, hit them. This is also a fantastic way to simply blind them so they cannot see your feet and hands. I do not know about you, but the more I can blindfold my opponent, the easier time I'm going to have. Important note: make sure you do not post. Posting is when you lock your arm at the elbow joint and is an illegal move. Not that boxers don't get away with it every single day, but this tactic and strategy, this is a tactics and strategy book and not a book on how to foul. So make sure you have a little bend to your arm to avoid getting called out by the referee. Shoot at the chest. Slipping is easy when someone shoots for your forehead. Therefore, shooting lower is better. A bob and weave style fighter, like Joe Frazier, wants you to chase their head because he will make you miss. While you're missing, he is causing you to add more time to your punches and allowing him to counter with that massive left hook. Think about it. If we're at least hitting something, you can rattle off your punches faster and maybe sneak something in. At the very least, you will keep your opponent at the end of your shots instead of letting them slip past the velvet rope, crash the party, and ruin your victory celebration. Fighting a shorter fighter can be tiring if they know how to pressure. That pressure is oftentimes coupled with head movement, so they can make you miss and make you pay. So, if you are fighting someone that is going to push the pace, would you rather be losing energy, missing punches that slide past them, or at least be hitting something? You know the answer. Hitting something is better than hitting nothing. I have witnessed this happen on a massive scale. Whether you are short or tall, when you're up against a slick boxer with incredible head movement, every punch you throw to the head not only misses, but gets countered so quickly that you barely even see it coming. If you start hitting the chest and shoulders, a few things happen. First, you shut down the slick slips. Number 2, they stop paying attention to those punches and they stabilize their body. Number 3, now they are not moving their upper body. You crack them in the jaw with your sharpest shots. Lastly, if you shoot for someone's forehead and they dip, you've hit nothing. But if you aim for their chest and they dip, then they will run their face into your punch. This mere fact alone is an additional reason for why this tactic is so valuable. If I'm boxing you and I'm trying to dip and weave where all your punches are going, I am going to stop dipping and weaving because you've taken away part of my game. Now I have to adjust, or you'll tear me apart and leave me in checkmate. Jab above their head or forehead to lower them. Have you ever heard modern boxing folks talk about, quote, setting traps? Here's a basic one you can use against a smaller foe. I know I said earlier to shoot for the chest in order to stop head movement, but what if you want to encourage head movement? In particular, encourage your shorter opponent to open themselves up for the short guy killer, the uppercut. If your opponent is a little stationary with their head, mix in a jab that is at the top of their forehead or above their head by just a hair. This can lower them down and get them bobbing. Once you've laid the foundation, feint the jab or throw a high jab, then follow it up with a perfectly timed uppercut, aiming for where they're going to be. There's nothing like landing a well-placed uppercut to crack that jaw. Note, if they move their head a lot, you probably don't ever want to consider this move. Stick to jabbing the chest and shoulders to stabilize them. Try it out in sparring with a more stationary partner and see if you can draw them into it. When they slip, control them. Let's say you didn't practice jabbing the chest and a slippery, short opponent slides past your jab or straight rear hand. This can also happen even if you've mastered all of these tactics. The standard impulse, if someone slips past a punch of yours, is to snatch it back because leaving your arm out can get you countered, right? Yes and no. As you build your base, you do not want to have the habit of bringing the hands back all the time. Again, you need to build a basic proper base, but like so many of these moves, there comes a time when basics are just that, basic. You have to have some more tools strapped on your tool belt. If you do miss a straight that your opponent slipped, it is correct at any level that you don't want to just leave it out there. You need to do one of two things: either pull it back on its own, or better yet, follow it up with a body shot, like a left hook if you missed a straight right hand. Or you can use the technique I'm about to show you. Take your extended arm and control your opponent's head. What makes a slip and shoot counter work so well is when the miss happens, there's a delay. That delay is exploited by the natural overextension of a missed punch, and the person slipping buys a split second with that miss, which is designed to exploit that momentary loss of control and come back with a fast, loaded counter. You take that all away from your shorter enemy when you use your extended arm that just missed to either pull the opponent off balance to the side or press down on them. This can make it impossible for the counter shot to be thrown, and best of all, make them not want to make you miss anymore. What could be better than doing something that makes your opponent not want to make you miss while also disarming them in a fashion that, even when they do make you miss, they can't make you pay? Try throwing a hard punch while I push your head off to the side or lean down on you, and you'll feel exactly what I'm talking about. Many of my fighters have had massive success with this throughout the years. Lean on them when they dip the hook. This is the same concept as missing the straight, except applied to a hook. Sometimes you'll be boxing a short guy and feel you can take their head off with a perfectly timed lead hook, but they see it and dip it. Of course, in this situation, you have options. Number 1, use your feet, hands, or head movement to avoid any potential counters. Number 2, after they make you miss the headshot, drop a shot right after to their body, or time a headshot as they come back up. Or you can miss the punch, and as the miss is still over their head, just press down on them with the forearm. Again, this is annoying and effective at shutting down the counter while discouraging your opponent from bobbing and weaving. Remember, the more tools you take away from your foe, the easier your night will be. Walk-offs. This is a classic old-school boxing technique demonstrated by many of the greatest boxers in the century. This is almost a form of playing possum and then turning that possum into a cobra. With this move, you are altering the rhythm and mindset of your opponent. It's something to be done sparingly, as it loses its effectiveness if done too much. To do the move, simply walk away and around your opponent once you have a few inches of space from them. Make sure you keep that space. What you are doing is almost appearing to be taking a break, or dare I say, making it look like you don't want to fight. We are programmed from our time sparring to lay off someone when they adopt this posture. It makes us want to say, "Dude, are you okay?" A world champion who fought Canelo and many other top fighters pulled this move on a pro I had, and I have to admit, my guy bought it and would lay off of him in these moments. What this champion would do is tag my guy up, slap him around, and then almost turn his back and walk away, causing my guy to just stop. This champ did an excellent job of dictating the rhythm of the session. As a newer coach at the time, I dropped to the level of the fighter, which you shouldn't do as a coach, and got into it with this champ. I got to the point where I said some choice things to him during the rounds, and he and I almost fought each other in another session. Now, enough story time. That is one example of the move, to dictate pacing. But here is where the teeth come in on the move. Use it like the greats did. As you are walking around and away and you see your opponent try to go after you, walk them into a clean right hand, or left hand if you're southpaw. As you can imagine, shadow box and sparring is where you're going to perfect this move. And with all of these moves, do your best to make them your own and adjust them to your style. Tip: if you want to walk them into a right hand, walk to your right. If you want to walk them into a left hook, walk backwards with the hands down to snap their head as they rush in thinking they're catching you sleepwalking. Tie up. Okay, I'm saving this move for last for a few reasons. First, it is technically illegal. At the very least, you can get a point taken away for excessive holding in pros and amateurs. I've seen it happen, and I've even seen people get disqualified for it. Second, to give you a line from Chuck Bodak, quote, "If you can hold them, you can hit them." But sometimes there's a time and place to hold someone, either to shut them down or to save yourself from getting knocked out. The great Emanuel Stewart was heavily criticized for not teaching Tommy Hearns how to do so. Yet, we have all seen fighters that do it excessively as well. The basic $2 boxing coach advice to the tall guy is fire off and tie him up. It's not bad advice because at the end of the day, it can work. Again, the only reason I hold back on this move is because of an old pro journeyman who I coached in my first facility. He was a master at the art of surviving and finishing pro fights against some of the best, but not at beating the best. Behind my back, he taught all my guys how to hold and drilled it as just something you do whenever. The result was excessive holding. Holding when you could have thrown 2 more punches and got them out of there. Holding the moment someone throws at you, eliminating any counters and turning boxing into wrestling. This hurt the progress of my fighters at that time, and some of them never recovered from it. Let me give you a tip on holding while we're talking about it, because my job is to arm you with knowledge. If you are on the ropes, hold them, then try to spin them so now they are on the ropes, and you can do one of the following. Number 1, step back and get to the center of the ring where you have more real estate. Number 2, cup your hands over the top or second of the ropes and hold them there. You can get called on this, so be careful about doing it too excessively. Number 3, if the ref is on one side, try to hold on the opposite side. Number 4, only tie up after you have already smothered. You can get your block knocked off trying to tie up when you're too far away. Instead, smother in, extinguish the fire, and then tie them up in knots. Like I said, when it comes to tying up, as well as any of the tactics we talked about in this chapter, don't forget about your base. Your base is what everything stands on. If you lose it or forget it, you will stunt your growth as a boxer. Think to yourself, what key points or tools do you want to retain, gain, and implement from this chapter?